like many parents out there, we didn't plan. And we found out on Christmas. So it was pretty surprising, but like also amazing. First thing I thought was like, how do I even go about it? You know, I'm semi-familiar with parental leave and I'm familiar with maternity leave, but I wasn't familiar with paternity leave and how it's treated at the business that I was at. I remember just talking to my dad and he was like, I went back 2 days later. He's a police officer. I had zero idea on how to plan it. And it was that was probably the most stressful part. In Australian culture, if you're American, that's a rite of passage, not an abundant telling of how tired you actually are. The biggest thing though is sleep deprivation, because you can't judge how tired or how your body's gonna feel at 2 hours of sleep versus 4 hours of sleep versus 6 hours. Give way more grace than you as the partner who didn't have the child deserve. I would have your house ready 1 month before. And then I would say,
See, one of the fears dads have about taking paternity leave usually isn't the baby. Most of the times it's work. Today's guest is Kevin. He's a sales leader in a quota-carrying role, and he recently became a dad. See, what makes Kevin's story different isn't just that he took time off, it's how his team supported him in the planning his leave, breaking it up and staying connected to the role without sacrificing his family. You know, we're gonna talk about what real support actually looks like, how to take leave without blowing up your career, and the parts of the early parenthood no one really prepares you for. We're gonna talk about sleep deprivation and the strain it can even put on your relationship. I'm excited for this one. Let's jump in. For the listeners out there, I would love for you to introduce yourself. Tell us, what do you do right now, and how old is your baby, if you don't mind sharing?
yeah. So my name is Kevin Reed Jr. I'm a business development representative manager at a company called Daily Pay, and my daughter, Kaya Rose Reed, is 4.5 months.
Yeah, we're close by. I think we're a month and a half apart. So I'm sure we'll have lots of similarities here. Um, I'm glad that you're here. As we've shared, these stories are to highlight different facets of paternity leave and what it means to be a father in the working world. So I'd love to hear, since I know we're close in terms of timeline, when you found out you were pregnant, like what was going through your mind? And was paternity leave even one of the first things you were thinking about?
So my wife, like many parents out there, we didn't plan. And we found out on
Uh,
Christmas. So I found out on Christmas. She found out the day before Christmas. So it was pretty surprising, but like also amazing. We've been married because of COVID reasons, been married for a little bit over a year, but
mhm.
been legally married for like 6 years. So it was time. But the first thing I thought was like, how do I even go about it? I'm semi-familiar with parental leave and I'm familiar with maternity leave, but I wasn't familiar with paternity leave and how it's treated at the business that I was at. I remember just talking to my dad and he was like, I went back 2 days later. He's a police officer. Um, so a lot of things were, I felt like I was
I
in
am curious
war.
about that. You mentioned your dad, and I'm always interested in how it's perceived in society. Did you have friends outside of work that had gone through this? Did you have any idea of, like I said, outside of your dad or maybe family members? Was that like something you were familiar with at all?
The previous company I was at, I knew our terms, so it was the same as what the women at the company got, or the person who had the child. So I was like kind of aware that it may be in that. Like I knew that it may. Some people call it parental leave, some call it maternity leave. So I had a kind of an idea. The company I worked at was pretty small, and I was very close with the woman who did have the child, and she had 20 weeks. So I was like, at
Yeah,
most
yeah,
I'm gonna get
yeah.
20 weeks. At minimum, they give me half, right? So I was like, give me 10 weeks. Because I do know like big tech, like
Hmm.
the Mangs slash
Yep.
Fang,
Yeah.
however you want to call it, do get like 28 weeks. And then I lived overseas for a long time. So I know in Australia where my wife is from, they get like a year. So I knew wouldn't be that long, but I
Yeah,
knew
and there
I'd
was
get
at
at least
least this
longer than
expectations.
2 weeks.
I am curious, as you sat down and thought through it, I'm sure we can get into it a little bit more, but I want to tease it a little bit. Since you already sort of had an expectations, did you have particular goals for the time period as you were starting to plan it?
No, I had zero idea on how to plan it, and it was that was probably the most stressful part, not knowing how to think about planning it. And kind of like that's where I really severely relied on my leadership.
Mm,
My director, amazing woman, she, you know, directed me on how, her friends who have had kids have done it. And then, our HR
mm,
business partner as well was like, ask around. We'll put you in the family. We'll put you in the family Slack. You can ask how people have done it,
yeah.
and you can ask other followers in the business that have
I
done it.
that
I'm actually,
that sounds like
yeah.
really good support. And I wonder if there's anything else, like not only her reactions, but the reactions of your colleagues. And sounds like you had a really good HR business. I'm curious, what else did they do that you felt like really supported?
Getting put in that Slack channel, the Daily Pay Parents Slack channel, was like
Mm,
where it all opened up. Where I was like, oh, this is how people have communicated. We also had a person who was on our team formerly, who's now on another team, another department. She was like, "Oh, ask me any questions." My wife is also, she's Australian, Kiwi from New Zealand. So, and this woman's husband's from New Zealand. So I was like, "Oh, like what did you do?" And then she told me how they broke it up and how they, in Australian culture, if you're American,
yeah.
it's a rite of passage to go back to Australia like month 4 when kids have the shots. So like I knew that if I was gonna try to be strategic with my
Yeah.
leave, I wanted to get at least 1 month in
Yeah.
Australia, and we ended up being able to
We
do
will come
last
back to
month,
that
so it
because I
was
think
good.
that was something strategic, and I didn't really know that, so I think there's something fascinating of how and why the travel. Actually, let's stay there while we're here. Sounds like that was strategic in multiple sense, partially cultural. How did you get to that point, or what else were the conversations that happened to say, okay, here's I'm going to break things up, and I think you have a special arrangement right now. How did you arrive, if you don't mind sharing, like what is it that you're doing, like how you broke it up, and how did you arrive to this structure?
They told me that I just needed to use my leave within a year. And it needed to be used within a year. So, and a lot of people that are in technology get told that, like they're allowed to use it whenever. And traditionally, that's how a lot of people do it. They take 2 weeks off when this is how the traditional route is. They get 6
Yeah.
to 12 weeks. Some people get 18. Some people get 28. Uh, and they take their first half when the wife has the baby, and then when the wife is
Mhm.
returning back to work, or wife partner is going back to work, they then finish their other half. So then they can your partner can also
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Mhm.
you know
Mhm.
get alone time. Essentially, told me that model, and I was like, oh, that sounds great. And there was another person in engineering who was doing it a little bit more strategically, where they didn't want to miss work, but also still wanted to get their time in. So they ended up breaking it up where they were able to use 2 days a week, but also work 3 days. And then they were able
Got it. So
to,
it sounds like,
uh, continue on.
yeah, part of it was having the menu of items of like, here's different ways that people have done it, and you felt comfortable, figuring which one works best for you. And then you mentioned the travel is something for the Kiwi Australian, like that is something that is cultural that you are able to do, which is amazing. I like to think, right? Like there's a lot of cultural things when you come to America, you kind of lose off because of, you know, different things. So awesome job there. And as you were thinking about the different groups that you were in, I'm curious if there was any other advice that stood out to you than just like, just take it, because everyone's just like, yeah, man, take it. It's so great. Was there any other advice that stood out to you?
I think it isn't just take it, it's use it. Because there's a lot of people that don't use it. And more often or not, some people have done what I've done, which is like take
Mm,
the first half then, and then they just
yeah.
don't go. They just go back and just never go back. And I think that was super important for development of Kaya, aiding my wife after she's just gone through a super traumatic event. Also, it's fun. You have the ability to have this one time. A couple think tanks I'm in. I asked them, like, what are they doing? They're like,
Hmm.
just whatever you do, use it all. Like some people say, use it, use it, use it, do it, do it, do it. But that in their brain is like just 2 weeks of it. It's like, no, you were given the X amount of time. They've told you how it's been allocated. And as long as it's used within this time and you're not working when it happens.
Yeah. um, Yeah, there's so much there. And then the thing that one of the things that I really like about your background, because it's similar to mine, not only are we in similar timeline, but you're also in a quota slash Karen role. How did you work through that? Because I don't know if I'm still almost like, man, We still got to hit this quota when we get back, you know?
I didn't have a quota when I left, as you like, it doesn't make sense. But I'm back, so I have a quota now. That's the nature of the game. I'm a people leader, so the other half is my team has not had a leader for they didn't have a leader for 6 weeks. So, that also affects them. So the way I kind of think of it is like, it's part of the game. You just, handle it out is, we're not going to get everything perfect, and having to navigate it and just be resilient and communicate as much as possible if stuff is, not going your
Yeah.
way, that hopefully that it works out. I am in a very blessed position where my team, we have 3 other managers who supported me, and helped, nominated team leads on my team who are more senior members that can help.
Yeah.
And I think that is also, it takes a village, and the village at work just as useful as the village that you have, in your community or at home.
And I'd imagine, since many people have done it before, there are examples of how to prep for it, or was there anything specifically you did for your team to make sure that they felt supported being out both ways? Like you could tune off and they would feel supported.
My director, well, I'm first close with all my leaders on my team. There's 4 of us. And my director specifically, who we are all under, was really good at managing and being like, hey, I have a team of 12, break them in half, give 6 to this person, 6 to that person. You create a timeline on when they need to do syncs. You create a cadence on, the questions and who the people they need to ask. It's pretty self-sufficient. They just need to have the points of contact to, when they have questions. We situated it very well so that we didn't lose.
Awesome job, man. And I like to say that too, where it's like it says so much about the leader that I often think my goal is not necessarily to always be there, but that I could go take, a month off in Jamaica chilling and the team would still be fine. Like that's how I feel like I've really done a good job there. I'm curious now about like you're probably going through it, or I'm curious. I am still on paternity leave, still sleep deprived. We'll talk about that. But what have been some of the hardest things what has been harder since the baby has arrived, or harder than expected? And maybe you didn't even have an expectation. It was like, man, no one warned me about this thing.
I think there's an like a not an abundant like telling of how tired you actually are, especially someone like me who is considered like the Energizer bunny of the floor. I'm always here to try to bring energy, and to bring that energy while also like waking up every time my
Yeah.
wife wakes up to show my support even if I can't help. Definitely puts a stronghold. But I played professional sports. You just got to be resilient, right? And it could be a lot worse, right? So putting perspective on it.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing though is sleep deprivation. I was speaking to a friend of mine who played high level sports as well, and I was like, it's like fall camp, going to preseason training. It's not, because you can't judge how tired or how your body's going to feel at 2 hours sleep versus 4 hours of sleep versus 6 hours sleep, as well as the emotional aspect of it, right? Like there's a lot of emotional support that you want to be giving to your partner. And your partner you're trying to give to you. So, there may be some clashes of some sort. You just got to be patient. I have a friend who I played college football with who sent me a message about, just be as patient as you possibly can. Nothing is perfect. And, a lot of things can be, emotional during the time. So just take everything with a grain of salt. Don't take it too
Yeah.
serious, and, have a good time
Totally.
and enjoy
Are
you there.
there
You do your
mantras
best.
or things that you would say to yourself to remind yourself throughout the time? I'd imagine you mentioned like potential clash. Like I've had them too, where it's like it's 2 a.m. in the morning. My wife says something I didn't hear. And a couple hours later, she's like, why didn't you do that? I was like, I didn't even hear you say that. And so it's just like a constant like checking in for us of like, hey, you're tired, I'm tired. Like anything I might say the next couple hours, like just give me grace.
Give way more grace than
Mm,
you as the partner who didn't have the child deserve, right? Like for me, it's like if she snaps at me or has a problem with me, then I don't need to take it as a personal. Very early on when Kaya was born, like she won't care if I tell a story, but Talia needed a smoothie like every morning because she was so like
yeah.
just all her nutrients is gone. One morning, she didn't think I brought it, and it was in the kitchen, not next to her, and got a little snappy. But like, I didn't take that as like she hates me and she's mad at me. I was like, well, she's just clearly what we like to call in rugby under the pump, which means like there's a lot of pressure. I didn't have a child, so I can't like I mean when you know lead with empathy and like try to think about those kind of things, you oh like
Yeah.
it's it's a goal in my 2026, lead with empathy. But like the ability to be like, it's not what it sounds like.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
just need to
I love
be,
that,
as
man.
patient and as
As
calm
we
as
wrap up, I'd
possible.
love to think about I'm a month and a half behind you, but even someone that's probably gonna go off in the next 6 months. What are some advice you would give to that dad on not only around paternity leave, taking it, and then potentially returning back?
If your baby comes on time, I would have your house ready 1 month before. That's something because my baby came a week before and
Hey,
we still weren't
I
ready.
just made my crib last week, you know?
And then she came a week early. And then I would say, uh, get all the
Mm.
exercise that you possibly can in. When you find out your wife is pregnant or your partner or your husband is pregnant, get as much exercise as you possibly can whenever you want to do it. Because after that, it becomes a restrictive. Like it's no longer you can just go at 5 p.m. after work. There's no longer you can just go at 7:30 before you go. Your
Yeah.
7:30 to 8 slot in the morning doesn't exist. So the Kobe 4 a.m. hours type of
Oh,
thing.
I like that. Oh man,
But
I
yeah,
just bought a pull-up bar. This that is
start working on
all
your
or
push-ups
like
because
I'm
the push-ups are
now,
all you need to
when
be able to
I'm
get in.
holding the baby again, like that's I'll do a couple squats. I'm like, man, is this it? Is this the dad bod for the next 6 months until there's some semblance of so I've yeah, I'm trying to give myself grace there, but like you, I was a pro athlete too, man. And I'm like, man, this is hard.
Yeah.
All right, Kevin, this is
You don't, yeah, it's
yeah, yeah.
you just
Um,
gotta get your
This has been
walks in.
great, man. Thanks. Is there any I'm curious if folks want to connect with you, follow your journey as a dad, as a leader, where might they connect with you?
I'm a big LinkedIn person. I love LinkedIn. My name is Kevin Reed Jr. If you can't find me, if there's any other Kevin Reed Juniors out there, I work at a company called Daily Pay.
Well, one of the things
Yeah.
I think about, because like I'm involved in a lot of stuff locally, and there's not only the working out, but there's a lot of stuff that I did church. Man, like we can't even bring the kid to church. Like I was involved in so much outside of work, and me and my wife were only kids, so like we just had a bunch of free time. I'm curious if you had outside projects, and how did you handle that, or how are you now handling that with like having a child?
So I do have outside of, I live in New York City, so socializing is super important for how I wake up in the morning and my energy. And then I also have, I work on a couple side projects. I work with a nonprofit that I have my own thing that I do with someone who I used to work with before. And all those things, I think when you become a new parent, it's super hard to kind of navigate and picking the time when you do it. Prepare yourself to carve out early mornings, late nights, because when the baby is asleep, you're probably working
Hmm.
on like your full time gig, or you're trying to sleep, and then thinking about how you can implement it into your new life because it'll be different, but you can't lose it. You got to continue to work on it, right? Don't lose it. And a lot of people just give up. Don't give up. Continue to work on it,
Yeah,
even if it's
that is
10
so
minutes a
true,
day,
and
right? It's better than
and
nothing.
and if it is a part of who you are, it's a part of what have made you who you are to this day. And someone mentioned to me is like it just looks different, right? Like as you said, maybe you could spend 2 hours watching the YouTube video to learn the thing, but maybe now you only have 10 minutes, and so like the time shrinks. How can you then use it best? But you're right. If you don't continue it, you end up. I like to say you wake up one day like you've lost yourself, and you don't want that because that's not you're not bringing your best self to the baby as well.